Good morning, everybody. It's very nice for me to be here in Bombay. Bombay is nice and warm. Kathmandu is very cold right now. So it's lovely to have everybody here. So, it was a lovely presentation, Anup. You set a lot of people thinking. And I represent the hospitality industry. I head this lovely hotel called the Solti Crown Plaza in Kathmandu. And we are all very, very concerned about sustainability. Nowadays it's also good business because there are many companies who want to do a conference with us, especially from Europe. We've got 2 or 3 inquiries, and they actually have a questionnaire where they ask, what sustainable practices do you actually have in the hotel? All right. So what I thought was that, Anup raised quite a few questions out there, which set us all thinking. So let me share with you, something what is happening in the hotel industry. He spoke about Marriott, but I'll speak to about IHG, the Intercontinental Hotel Group with whom I work. And we actually taken a head start over most of the other chains and actually having a lot of practices built in. So let me move forward and take you through this. All right, so primarily when we look at hotels, especially a 5-star hotel like this, what are the challenges for hotels? So one thing is that we need to provide continuous world-class non-interrupted service, and that is something which is taken as a absolute no-brainer. So for example, you want your internet to work, you want to have clean, crisp sheets, you want to have pure water, which you want to be 100% sure it is a sealed bottle and not contaminated, and all of these are things which guests want, they look forward to, and that's part of our business. Then guest indifference or inconvenience, a certain thing is that certain things are inconvenient for guests, and on certain things we try and do a lot of things, but maybe people are indifferent to the fact. So many times, for example, like just take the example of this plastic bottle. We actually put a jug of water on the table, and many guys say, where's the bottle? Why don't you have a bottle? And it takes a lot of time and think to impress upon somebody that this is sustainable, this is better, and things, and it doesn't work many point of times. In our hotel, we used to do this bed sheet thing. I will share with you an example when I reach that place. There's also a lot of reluctance on the part of employees to adopt sustainable practices. It's not easy. They've been in the industry for so many years, and they say, you're making so much of money, so why do you want to do this? Of course, for example, anything which you recycle means somebody needs to cart it back, put it through a process and bring it back again. So a lot of employees look at a lot of sustainable practices as more work for us, which maybe we don't need to do. Another thing, which he spoke about, and I carry that theme through, is working with communities. You cannot be isolated from the community. Now, when you start getting to engage with communities, a lot of the work we do doesn't exist in job descriptions of many employees, all right? Now, we have very strong, employee unions, there are labor rules in force, and many times it's something which is do good voluntarily by employees. Now that doesn't work a lot of the times, because if somebody doesn't turn up, you can't kind of say, I will take action against you because it's part of your work, but it's not. So we need to do a lot of changes to bring those things in and get over this by influencing employees. Then of course, there are cost and profitability challenges. As a general manager, I'm held accountable for GOP, called gross operating profit, which is profit from operations. And anything which takes the cost up, my finance head and my HODs and myself, we look at it like really critically and say, how is this going to add to the bottom line? In today's competitive world, we deal with many, many people. And at the end of the thing, you say, I provide this service, I do this, I do this, I do this. But what do you think is the number one question which people have in their mind? What do you think is the number one question? What's the rate? What's the price? And when you quote that, they say, oh, X and Y hotel are giving us this price. I do this, that's what I do. Somebody else says, I don't have that kind of budget, can you reduce the price? I can see a lot of people smiling here. I'm sure you do this negotiation with hotels on behalf of your companies, but that again is something which is a very big thing, and a lot of people look at that as a big challenge, all right? And then of course, every brand has brand standards. It's the way we do what we do. In this hotel, they have a lovely gesture, and I've come here like 3 or 4 times, and every time when you come, they give you a small mala which is made of some beads, and they give it to you, and you feel very good about it. They come and put that on you. But the best part is, I've got probably 2 lying in my house, and I've got a 3rd one now, So why do you do it? That's our brand standard. That's how we welcome you. But a lot of things, which we do may not actually work towards sustainability, but it is there. So how do you get around things like this? So let me first share with you, where our thoughts and our processes came from. It came from our parent company, which is the Intercontinental Hotel Group. And I have a little video for all of you to have a look.
Providing employment opportunities to thousands of people, stepping up in times of crisis, or making our hotels greener places to stay. Doing business responsibly is key to how we run our company, and we have a track record that we're proud of. So, what's next? Building on the good work we've achieved through our 2013 to 2017 targets, we'll focus on 4 areas: environmental sustainability, community impact, our people, and responsible procurement. We have set ourselves 11 new responsible business targets, focused on the areas we believe we can drive the most positive impact, ensuring we play our part in addressing some of the world's biggest challenges and make the greatest contribution towards the objectives of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Let's talk about the planet. Global temperatures are the hottest on record, sea levels are rising, and sea ice is at its lowest level in history. This is one of the reasons why we're aiming to reduce the carbon footprint per occupied room in our hotels by another 6 to 7%. That's the equivalent of over 5,300 flights around the world. Water conservation has always been important to us, and we'll launch new projects to help learn how to protect every drop our hotels use. Being a sustainable business also means working with our hotels to save on unnecessary costs. Through our industry-leading IHG Green Engage system, we've helped our hotels avoid costs of over $470 million over the past 5 years. Our hotels operate in communities around the world, and those communities are at the heart of our business. We'll continue to work hard to help support local economies and jobs through our IHG Academy program, which has trained over 47,000 people since 2013. Inspiring our industry's next generation, we want to benefit another 30 to 40,000 people by 2020. We know diverse workplaces outperform those that fail to embrace difference. We're committed to attracting talent and developing our people, creating an inclusive culture that embraces diversity and celebrates difference. That's why we've introduced new targets to increase gender and ethnic diversity, driving up representation of hotel leaders and senior leadership from underrepresented groups. Beyond our own operations, we have a unique role in influencing the attitudes and behaviors of those who work with us. We spend significant resources with a wide range of suppliers and work with them to ensure that we source goods and services in a responsible and sustainable way through our green criteria and rigorous approach to managing health, safety, and risks. We're proud of our culture and the role we play in caring for others and the planet, providing true hospitality for everyone. What we each do every day can make a real difference to colleagues, owners, guests, and the wider world. Everyone has a role to play in helping achieve our new targets, and we're excited about the opportunities ahead.
All right, so as we all know, sustainability is currently the need of the hour, and how do we implement this is really where the challenge lies. So one of the things which IHG did was they got in a program called Green Engage, and it started about 3 years back. The first year, it was all about disseminating information, getting people to know about what can happen, collecting ideas and things like that. Second year, they put a target on us. So last year, we had a target where we had to reduce our carbon footprint by 5%. And there was a whole lot of measures which were put in. And suddenly all of us were waking up to the fact that you have to do something because it became part of our metric. And this is the third year where it is an important part and you have to reduce it by another 2% over what you achieved last year. So we get every hotel, and we have over 5,500 hotels worldwide, has a Green Engage target where you have to work on reducing your carbon footprint. So there are a lot of measures in place. We've got these tables. We know which work. We have to input data, then validate that by what you're purchasing. For example, you use a generator at times, or you use the boiler for running your furnace oil for your hot water supplies. So it goes into how much of fuel did you purchase, which is backed up by data which you need to enter, and then the coefficient of that is taken. And suddenly we realized that we were using something, just to give a small example, called furnace oil, and we are not able to reduce our carbon footprint. But when we moved that to high-speed diesel, though it costs us a little more, but we are able to show a substantial impact in terms of what we are trying to do. It forced us to go back to our owning companies. Most hotels are owned by owners, but they're managed by brands and chains like us. So we had to go back to the owner to say, look, we need to bring this thing down, otherwise we're not going to be able to meet our targets. And that's how we got the whole board involved, and suddenly they started looking at a certain part of their business and decided, hey, we can put this under our corporate social responsibility because this is something which is helping the environment. So these are ways, which we went ahead and did. So let me share with you, some of the things of how to make this happen and what we were able to do in my hotel. So first thing, of course, was to engage with our guest. It's very, very important that when you want people to do something, especially if he's your customer, and you might be in the tourism business, you might be in the hotels business, you might be in allied businesses, but it's very, very important to engage with your customer where they need to get the correct messaging as to why you're doing what you're doing, which helps people feel good to stay with us. So these were some of the practices, which we put in. Now, changing bed linen daily. So I love that point, which Anup made, and he said that I still put that card on the bed, but they changed it in any case. And a lot of times we faced a lot of issues like this, where something didn't work and you went back to briefing and then started take course of action. Instead of that, we changed the process. So what we do in our hotel, we have this card, and we say that we usually change your linen after 2 days. In case you would like your linen changed today, please place the card on the bed. Now what happens, so the default is that the linen is not going to get changed today, all right? And that made a lot of difference because guests realized that, and a lot of people, they actually don't think so much, What we found when we spoke to guests, they said, oh, you had a card like that? I didn't put it on the bed. We did some mock round with some of the guests, and what we found, that's why I said guest indifference, many of them didn't, but they said, oh, okay, is that, you didn't change, but good you didn't do that, but they were not really aware. So one of the things is that when you put into practices is how to make it easy for things to get implemented. Then the other thing what we started doing was moving away from single-use plastics. Now, the moment you bring out a thing like that, and then you discuss this with employees, with guests, as to why you're using something, it makes a lot of difference. For example, we do a lot of takeaway orders, and we went in for paper cups. We did paper cups when we did parties in the garden. And people said, you should have had some plastic. Why don't you have plastic? So then we put a little sign there which said, we are using paper cups. It's because it is more sustainable. And a lot of people said, oh, that's nice. So somewhere communicating what you're doing makes a lot of difference. Motion sensors in corridors and light intensity dimmers. Now in most corridors, you'll find hotels are 24/7 operations. So corridors lighting is always on. It's never off. So we put in these motion sensors, and initially if your hotel is an old one like mine, it costs a lot of money in rewiring it. But if it's a new hotel, it can be part of the design. You can do the same even in your offices. Many people, I work in companies which are really aggressive companies. You got to work late, but at late, all your corridor lights are on. Just put a motion sensor. The lights will be off. They'll come on as you require it. Also, this light intensity dimmer was something which came to us as a practice from one of our vendors, where he said, it's all your lights in your lobby are always on. But when it's bright, when daylight is bright outside, you don't need so much. So it was a complex wiring system to put on some lights and put off some, have somebody coming around to do that and all. Instead of that, we just went in for these photosensitive dimmers program, and it just, as the lighting outside goes down, the lights become more brighter. This is something, which made a lot of difference. Then, renewable energy elevators. We had to change our elevators, and one of the things we went for, a company called Otis from India, which makes the regen elevators. So every time the elevator comes down, it actually generates some electricity for you. So there's a battery inside which stores it, which you can use as it goes up. So that again made a lot of difference. Our lift operating costs came down by close to 40%. Then we have locally made products. And again, talking about brand standards. So we had a brand standard which said that you need to give jam and honey, on the breakfast table in small individually packed jars. Now in Nepal, nobody does individually packed jars. Those are only used in hotels or somewhere where people want to use something individually, which is usually not the case there. So we have to import these, and everything comes with us. Expiry date, a lot of times has to be on the table because part of brand standards. So what we did was that this came up as a brainwave from some of our employees, where they said a lot of guests who come here, they say, where is this honey from? And in Nepal is a mountainous country. You get these mountain honeys which are very much sought after. It's called chiru honey, and it's supposed to have a lot of medicinal things. So we used to have that on the buffet, and they said, why don't you have it on the table? So from there we picked up this idea. We just bought a whole lot of these containers. We fill it up with local honey, and we got local jam, local produce, which is quite free of gelatin and how it's done outside. And we had that on the table. We put a little sign which says these are locally made products based upon guest needs. If you want packaged products, it's there on the buffet, which was there in bulk packs. So if you want to have those are there. And that made, again, a lot of difference. And we got a lot of people to appreciate the taste. In fact, some of them said, can we take some of this back with us? So we used to put it in a little larger pack and give it to them. And, pencils instead of pens. So, and there's this company which does this pencil which has a seed at the bottom. So you actually take the pencil home and plant it in your garden. So we just adopted that. And of course, glass refillable bottles. So for that, again, you need to have good signage to say, you need to have a process where you test the water that you're doing. This is something we are experimenting with right now, and we are going to be implementing that across all our rooms. So it needs to have an expiry date. It needs to have all these various factors built in, including how you're going to process the water which you're going to use. So what we found was we started engaging this with our guests. It made a lot of difference. People started appreciating that. A lot of people preferred to stay with us because of a lot of sustainable practices. These are just some. We actually have about 22 practices which we already put in, and we have a list of another 30 more which we are going to put in from time to time. Community is very, very important. A hotel consumes a lot from the community. We don't think of it like that, but if you think about it deeply, wherever a hotel is, it consumes a whole lot of water. Where's that water coming from? Not from municipal supply. Most supplies don't have that kind of water to give. We take deplete groundwater. Okay, we use a lot of energy, that generates a lot of heat. So there are a lot of things which hotels do, which are largely detriment to a community. So we started doing this active engaging with the community. It came down from IHG. It came down to what we wanted to do to engage with people. And we did a lot of things which we put in. So one was, greening the area. All hotels you'll find have lots of trees, And nowadays, parks have vanished from communities because every inch of land people build bigger and taller buildings. But hotels are a place where you need to have certain open areas, especially an older hotel. Like my hotel has 12 acres of land. My property is probably only across an acre and a half. The rest of it is open land, and we plant a lot of trees. So what we started doing, we used to have this World Environment Day. We started involving the local community, and says, come with us and plant trees along with us. So it wasn't just an employee activity, but it was something that involved the community. And we said, we are the green lungs for the area. And that kind of connected with a lot of people. Then we did some LED lighting on the periphery of our property. So there's a large boundary wall. And on that, we started putting LED lighting along with solar. That helped the community. Of course, it helped the hotel because your boundary walls are lit, but also helped the community outside. And we made a message of it to say, this runs on solar power. And that made, again, a lot of difference to people, and they appreciated that. Then, you know, this used soap, we collect all the used soap, we put it together. There's somebody who collects all this soap and makes it into soap, which is then used by the community to give to the poor people to use for hygiene and things. And we collect a lot of newspaper. We generate a lot of paper, not just newspaper, a lot of paper. And that paper gets collected by somebody where they make it into pulp and use it to create articles, you know, which they can sell, like papier-mâché stuff. So things like that we started, you know, working with. And waste disposal. So another thing was that what we found was that in the hotel we used to separate our waste. We have biodegradable waste, plastic waste, non-biodegradable waste, or food waste, you know. So we segregate that, but when the truck came from municipal corporation to pick it up, they had no system of segregation. So some of the things, you know, in Nepal, we've recently had elections, it happened last year, and now we got local self-bodies. So we said we can influence the local self-bodies to go in for something like this. And out of our CSR budget, we actually created these dustbins where there are 3 things, and we did a whole awareness program around this so that waste gets segregated. And there are private companies today which come and pick up the waste. And the best part is that earlier you had to pay them, today they pay you to pick up the waste. You know, and some of it goes, I think they have a biogas project running somewhere where all that food waste goes into, you know, and then they have a certain paper thing which they pick up. So there's a lot of awareness going on, and I feel organizations like ours can do a lot of work with local self-governments, working with the mayor, trying to make people, you know, look good, feel good about handling and managing their own waste. So from a regular dump where you just come and dump everything, we've been able to influence them to put these large steel dustbins with the 3 colors on it and a lot of education around that. And I think that made a lot of difference to the community. And as a hotel, we got a lot of visibility. And again, you know, every hotel, we compete with all other hotels. And I think there are about 14, 15 hotels in Kathmandu. So these are things that people don't write about. You know, so these are something where you get a heads up even with the media. And then, of course, you know, we had a composting project is something which we are working on, where we are trying to create fertilizer. So we are trying to put this whole together, put a pit in, and there are 2, 3 technologies which we are dealing with. One of them is the earthworm technology. So you actually have a pit full of earthworm, and you put your food waste in there, and what they take out is fertilizer which comes out on a daily basis. There are also today certain machines which are composting machines which we can work with. So I'd like to share with you also another film which one of my colleagues did in the US. So let's have a look at this. So they had a sea turtles.
My name is Beverly McKay, and I'm the general manager of the Holiday Inn Express, Pensacola Beach. It's very important to us at the hotel that our guests engage with the idea that we're on a barrier island, and we share it with so much natural life, and sea turtles are a big part of that. This hotel has had a nest almost every year in the 33 years I've been here.
People are really excited about sea turtles in the community, but they don't realize the impacts that artificial lights have for sea turtles. It can cause hatchlings to get disoriented, crawl around the beach, and not be able to make it back to the ocean.
We knew that a lot of our sea turtle lighting was adequate, but it was not the most efficient way we could be lighting the building. So one day I was approached by the Sea Turtle Conservancy. She said, we found a way that we can shield that back side of those bollards and replace additional bollards. And then she showed me a picture of our balcony lighting and said, we've got a much better product for this. And it uses LED lights, which is also more energy efficient. We replaced all of the bulbs that we could with LED lights. Finding people to do the installation, we did most of it in-house. It's been a very simple process. We've had significant savings with our electric consumption particularly. We use IHG Green Engage to track all of our utilities, and it questions sometimes, are you sure this is your electric bill? Because it's less than last month. And every time we make an initiative like the sea turtle lighting, or doing the motion sensors, or replacing our water boilers, or any of the other initiatives Green Engage recommends, we see those prompts, which is wonderful. Not just speaking to the hotels on barrier islands, not just speaking to hotels about doing things that are good for nature, but speaking to a hotelier who's looking at his bottom line. I would suggest that they do everything they can to conserve and retrofit whatever they can. It works for the bottom line if it doesn't work for anything else.
All right, so the other part which is very, very important is that to work with vendors. So any organization has a lot of vendors who come and supply you a whole lot of products. So while we try to do a lot of things inside, we extended that. So went to community, then we went to vendors. And what we found was that if we could work with them, because we had a lot of knowledge base to help them reduce costs, which made a difference. For example, hotels consume a lot of eggs. You know, breakfast means eggs, all right? So we did a whole program where we got a lot of plastic trays done. So when the vendor comes, you know, all eggs get washed. So we have this large trough in which it gets washed, sanitized, and then it gets transferred onto these trays, which we have. So one, from a hygiene perspective, it is a very good practice to have. The other thing what it did was, he took those cardboard trays back and got them again the next day. We do a similar thing with fruits and vegetables. Most fruits and vegetables come to you in baskets, or they come to you in gunny bags. You know, especially potatoes, sacks of onions. So there again, we have these storage bins which are placed nearer to the receiving area, closer to the food stores. That's how it's designed. And they go directly into the bins. Those gunny bags go back and they get reused again. So similarly like this, we worked on so many practices which helped the vendor reduce his cost, and he could of course pass those costs back to us, and that made a lot of difference. We did that with some of our juices and our beverage vendors, which are not our standard thing. We did it with the can vendors. We took the cans back. They only had to do just the lid again. So lots of things like this, are something which we are working with. It helps us reduce cost, of course. Then very important is the employee. Now this is very good for me as the general manager to speak a lot of things, but the people who actually make that happen are the last line employees. And it's very, very important that employees are engaged and they understand what is to be done, because they're the ones who actually practice or don't practice. So, from when I was a young management trainee and I joined the Oberoi Hotels, that's where I started my career, we used to have this switch off equipment when not in use, all right? But most of the equipment we never switched off. For example, we used to have the rotary toaster, I still remember, which used to go running all the time because it's supposed to be. And I told the chef, why don't you switch it off? And he told me, you don't know anything, let the toaster be on, because when a guest order comes, it needs to go within 20 minutes. So the toaster used to run 8 hours shift, it run 8 hours, just maybe 6 orders for club sandwiches to come, where the bread needs to get toasted. So from there, we've changed a lot of those kind of practices, which are no-brainers. You go for pop-up toasters, put it in, it still pops up within 2 minutes. By the time you're getting your dressings and your other thing ready for the sandwich, the bread is already toasted. So these are certain things which we did just as a matter of reducing electricity and reducing cost. But today, it's gone much, much beyond that. So, it's very, very important to have sustainability as part of your work practices so people understand what needs to get done. So some of these things, for example, was that, soap. So we just told, just get your own soap or put in liquid soap in a push button thing. So you take out as much soap you want to use and just use that. So in our lockers, all hotel lockers have large bathrooms. Most people, when they come to work or get out of work, they take a shower in or shower out. and there's a lot of soap cakes being used, and most of it comes out of our guest supply. Somebody uses a cake and then he doesn't know what to do with it, chucks it away. Can't keep it in the locker. So therefore, we put in these refillable liquid pumps with soap and shampoo inside the toilet. That took certain things down. We have the staff cafeteria, and their lights are always on. So we started a practice, lights on, lights off, and we have certain emergency lighting which is always on. So at the appointed hour, the lights would just go off. We just programmed it and put it in. So that again made a lot of difference. So similarly like that, we had to put in these kind of practices. So regular learning and development of skills, very, very important to have a lot of training, put all this part of this and ensure this happens. And of course, recognition, a lot of recognition. Another thing we started doing in our hotels, and I want to share with this small film before I end, about we have a holiday and resort at Kanduma in the Maldives, and they did a lot of things because they're in a very ecologically fragile place, and we have this slogan in IG which says creating great hotels guests love. So they did a whole slogan around that saying creating great hotels fish love, and they went down to last mile. I'd just like to share that video with you before I end.
Here in Holiday Inn Resort Kanduma, we are home to over 1,000 guests each year and 1,200 species of fish. But for the fish, the future is not certain. The coral is their home, but it's in crisis. We are doing our bit to fix it. I search for healthy corals, take clippings, and fix them on the coral frames. Guests help too. Once done, they put their name on it, and then I send regular updates. For me, hospitality is not only the guests, the ocean also. Now the corals are making a comeback. It's a very amazing feeling.
Was a certain small short presentation which I just wanted to do to say sustainability works. Is it profitable? You bet it is. We are able to bring our costs down every year, and now suddenly all the HODs and employees look at it as a great way to work in our hotels. Thank you very much.